Aisha Johnson entered the sleek boardroom with a calm determination that masked the storm of thoughts racing through her mind. Today was not just another meeting. It was the culmination of years of hard work, sleepless nights, and relentless ambition. She had been invited to present her startup as breakthrough project to the board of a prestigious investment holding, a room dominated by white men whose eyes carried centuries of inherited authority and subtle prejudices. The polished mahogany table stretched before her, each chair filled with men who had seen countless proposals, many dismissed with a polite smile or a patronizing nod. Aisha adjusted her blazer and felt the familiar surge of nerves, the kind that sharpened focus rather than dulled it. Before we dive in, I want to know, where are you watching from? Which city? Make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a like to support the channel. Every step she took toward the head of the table carried weight. Every subtle glance from the board, a reminder that she had to prove herself beyond the numbers on her slides. As she began speaking, outlining her project's potential, the room's reaction was mixed. Some listened politely, nodding occasionally. Others leaned back, arms crossed, eyes narrowed, as if to measure whether her presence truly belonged there. Questions began softly at first, under the guise of curiosity. "How do you plan to scale this with your current team?" asked one board member, voice smooth but with a faint edge of skepticism. Aisha answered with precision, detailing strategies and metrics that reflected months of planning. Yet she felt the undercurrent of doubt, unspoken but palpable. The whispers were subtle at first, a quiet exchange of glances and muttered comments that could have gone unnoticed by anyone less attuned. But Aisha knew what they meant. The challenge was not just the project, it was her. One senior investor leaned forward, blue eyes sharp, tone deliberately casual. "It's impressive, but are you confident a young woman can manage this on such a scale?" The words hung in the air, more than a question. They were a test, a challenge wrapped in civility. Aisha paused, letting the weight of the room settle. She could feel every eye tracing her posture, every flicker of judgment reflected in the polished surfaces. She smiled calmly. "Confidence comes from preparation and results," she said, letting the statement land without defensiveness. The room shifted slightly, the subtle power dynamics already beginning to strain. As she continued presenting, outlining milestones, projections, and potential risks, she noticed the reactions change. Some attempted polite engagement, but the undertone of skepticism remained, a reminder of the barriers she had navigated her entire life. Her voice grew firmer with every word, an unspoken assertion that competence cannot be denied by bias. When she finished the first segment of her presentation, the silence was immediate, expectant. The senior investor, who had questioned her, leaned back and exchanged a look with a colleague. There was a hint of surprise, perhaps even discomfort. Aisha recognized it as the first crack in the wall of preconceptions she had faced. She allowed a brief pause, letting the numbers, the strategy, and her calm demeanor speak louder than any retort. But the real test was yet to come. As the discussion turned to challenges, board members began probing in more pointed ways. "Have you considered how investors might react to a team led by someone your age and experience?" one asked, voice sharp, edged with disbelief. Another interjected subtly, "It's unusual to see a woman in such a role. Are you ready for the scrutiny?" The words stung, layered with bias, but Aisha's expression remained composed. Inside, a fire ignited not anger, but determination. She was accustomed to subtle dismissal, but she would not allow it to define her presentation or her worth. She knew that how she responded now would set the tone for the rest of the meeting. Aisha drew a slow breath, her mind running through the facts, projections, and data that were her armor. "I am ready," she said firmly, "not only for scrutiny, but for results. Every metric, every milestone, every risk has been accounted for. And the team I lead is fully capable of executing this vision." The room's atmosphere shifted imperceptibly, tension rising as some members tried to maintain composure while others frowned, realizing the young woman standing before them would not be easily dismissed. The senior investor, clearly unsettled by her confidence, tried to regain control. "We've seen many ambitious proposals," he said, voice steady but with a warning undertone. "Why should we take yours seriously?" Aisha met his gaze evenly. "Because the numbers are real, the strategy is proven, and the impact is measurable. Dismissing it because of who leads it would be a disservice to the potential of this project and to your own judgment as investors." The silence was profound. Some members leaned forward, scrutinizing her as if trying to catch a flaw, while others seemed to reconsider, their previous bias challenged by the clarity and authority in her voice. Aisha continued, methodically answering every technical question, reframing skeptical comments into opportunities to demonstrate competence. Each response, calm and precise, chipped away at the invisible walls the board had built. By the midpoint of the meeting, the atmosphere was charged. Her presence alone had altered the dynamic. Whispers among the members were replaced by attentive listening, a recognition of skill that transcended preconceptions. Yet, the senior investor, unwilling to yield completely, attempted another provocation. "Your team is small. Are you prepared to handle unforeseen complications at this scale?" Aisha's response was measured, deliberate. "Scale is not just a function of size. It's a function of process, adaptability, and leadership. My team has demonstrated both consistently. Challenges are expected. Preparation ensures we meet them head-on." The boardroom remained tense, the air thick with unspoken acknowledgement that she had not only presented a proposal, but asserted herself in a space that had historically minimized voices like hers. Every word, every pause, every confident glance reinforced that she was here to stay, that her place at the table was earned and undeniable. And as the discussion moved toward closing considerations, Aisha knew the stakes extended far beyond a single meeting. This was not just about investment approval. It was a statement, a quiet revolution in a room conditioned to underestimate her. The first part of the battle had been won in the minds of some, while the confrontation with lingering prejudice promised that the climax, when the board's true verdict would be revealed, was still ahead. She sat back briefly reviewing her notes, mentally preparing for the next round, aware that her resolve, composure, and clarity would determine not only the success of the project, but the acknowledgement of her authority in a room built for others. As the boardroom meeting progressed, the tension became almost tangible. Each word, each glance, a measure of unspoken authority and hidden prejudice. Aisha Johnson could feel the subtle shift in energy around the table. Some board members now listened intently, their skepticism tempered by the undeniable clarity and precision of her presentation. The senior investor, whose questions had carried the weight of doubt and condescension, leaned forward again, attempting one last challenge. "We've seen ambitious proposals before, but experience matters. How can you assure us that your team can manage large-scale operations without the oversight of seasoned leaders?" Aisha met his gaze steadily, calm and unwavering. "Experience is valuable," she said evenly, "but adaptability, strategy, and execution define success. My team has demonstrated all three, consistently delivering results that exceed expectations. Oversight is important, but micromanagement undermines potential. Trust in competence, not assumption, is what drives innovation." A faint murmur rippled across the room, subtle acknowledgement from members who recognized the weight of her words. The senior investor shifted in his chair, a flash of frustration passing over his face. Aisha continued, laying out detailed contingency plans, data-driven projections, and scenarios that anticipated risks, each point articulated with precision and authority. The room fell into a rare silence, broken only by the clicking of pens and the quiet shuffle of papers as members absorbed the scope and credibility of the proposal. It was no longer a presentation. It was a demonstration of leadership, a clear statement that she was not merely a participant in this space, but a force to be reckoned with. The final question came from the chairman, a man who had remained mostly silent until now. Ms. Johnson, your approach is unconventional, but the metrics are compelling. What you have presented challenges the assumptions many of us held. How do you see your team scaling over the next year? Aisha smiled, confident, knowing that the moment called for a synthesis of vision and reality. Scaling is about structure and empowerment, she said. We have built systems that allow for both oversight and autonomy. Every member of the team is accountable, every process is measured, and every potential obstacle is planned for. Growth is deliberate, strategic, and inclusive. Our success is a collective effort, not a reflection of hierarchy alone. A slow nod from the chairman, a gesture almost imperceptible, signaled a turning point. Whispers among the other board members quieted as the gravity of her response settled in. The senior investor tried once more, his tone sharper, almost a challenge. And if unforeseen issues arise, do you have the authority to make swift decisions? Aisha's reply was unwavering, a quiet assertion that resonated across the room. Authority is earned through preparation and demonstrated capability. I do not ask for blind trust. I offer results backed by strategy, data, and proven execution. When challenges arise, decisive action is not only possible, it is inevitable with a competent team and a clear plan. For a moment, the entire boardroom seemed to pause, absorbing the weight of her words. The air was charged, the balance of power shifting in subtle yet undeniable ways. Board members who had questioned her presence could no longer ignore the certainty in her voice, the clarity in her reasoning, or the quiet confidence that demanded recognition. When the chairman finally spoke, his tone measured but approving, it was clear the verdict had shifted. Ms. Johnson, your proposal is thorough and your leadership evident. The board will support your project and approve the funding as presented. Relief and triumph washed over Aisha, not just for the approval itself, but for the recognition of her authority in a room conditioned to underestimate her. As she gathered her notes, she allowed herself a brief, private moment of satisfaction. The project had been approved. The board had witnessed her competence, and her presence had shifted perceptions, challenging biases that had long gone unexamined. But the victory extended beyond professional achievement. The story of a young black woman confidently asserting herself in a space dominated by tradition and privilege would ripple outward, inspiring others who had faced similar challenges. She imagined colleagues and friends hearing the story, understanding that persistence, preparation, and unwavering self-assurance could break through even the most entrenched barriers. Later, as she walked back to her office, Aisha reflected on the significance of the day. The boardroom had tested her, pushed her to the edge, but it had also provided the stage on which her abilities could shine unmistakably. She knew the path ahead would not always be easy, but the experience had fortified her confidence and strengthened her resolve. In the following weeks, her story began to spread. Mentors shared the account in professional networks. Young women in tech reached out to express admiration, and colleagues remarked on her composure and leadership under pressure. The approval of her project was only the beginning. The recognition of her capability resonated far beyond the boardroom, challenging norms and inspiring conversations about bias, inclusion, and respect. Aisha continued her work with renewed determination. Every meeting, every presentation, every decision became an opportunity to assert her presence and influence positively, to demonstrate that competence and authority were not defined by gender or skin color, but by preparation, courage, and clarity of purpose. The senior investor, who had once tried to undermine her, now watched with a cautious respect, understanding that true leadership cannot be dismissed lightly. And while some whispers of doubt lingered, Aisha's unwavering performance had shifted the narrative irreversibly. The boardroom, once a space of subtle intimidation, had been transformed, even if only in perception, by the power of confidence, knowledge, and calm defiance. By the end of the day, Aisha sat at her desk, reviewing her team's progress and planning next steps. She understood that success was not measured solely by approval or recognition, but by the ability to navigate adversity with grace and intelligence, to transform challenges into opportunities for growth, and to leave a lasting impact. The lessons of the day were clear. Preparation, courage, and integrity are the pillars of influence, and standing firm in the face of skepticism can change both perception and reality. Aisha knew her journey was just beginning. Every challenge she had faced, every biased glance, every doubt cast upon her ability had led to this moment of undeniable achievement. She had not only secured the project, but had set an example for others, demonstrating that the assertion of one's capabilities could redefine expectations and inspire systemic change. And as she reflected quietly in the solitude of her office, she understood the broader significance of her actions. This was more than a personal victory. It was a statement to the industry, a reminder that talent, preparation, and courage cannot be constrained by preconceived notions. Her presence had made a difference, and her story would continue to resonate. Aisha smiled softly, knowing that the boardroom confrontation was a moment that would echo far beyond the walls of that room, inspiring others to stand tall, claim their space, and confront bias with confidence and clarity. This story, her story, was a testament to the power of resilience, preparation, and unwavering self-belief. To everyone watching, remember, no matter the room, the situation, or the obstacles, your voice and your presence matter. Stand firm, speak clearly, and never let others' assumptions define your worth. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more real-life accounts of courage and resilience, make sure to subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us bring more stories like Aisha's to the world.